The first time I ever heard about Lord of the Rings, it was actually from my dad. When I was a kid, my dad used to read me the books before we went to bed every night. And all the way back then, I fell in love with this absolutely amazing franchise. I actually read the books before I ever watched the movies, so I had a much greater appreciation for what the movies were. And I will never regret that. The Lord of the Rings books are out of this world. And you know what you definitely won't forget? Subscribing. Hit that subscribe button, and you can get tons more reviews just like this. Don't you want to hang out with a guy who loves Lord of the Rings, video games, and Star Wars? If you subscribe, then you can spend, I guess, relative time with me. I think I'm gonna upload like once a week, that in shorts whenever I have time. And if you subscribe, then you can have access to all of it whenever you want. Please subscribe. Bigger number makes me feel like a better person and a more successful person. Just subscribe. You don't even have to turn on the little bell button, although I really wish you would. You don't even have to. Just subscribe. If you do that, then everything, please subscribe. You can find stuff that you can only really find in the books, like Tom Bombadil, which to this very same day, people still don't know who the heck he is, because he literally shows up and he's quite literally him. This meme perfectly sums up exactly Tom Bombadil's entire appearance in the book. Not only that, but the books have even more meaning if you've read the Unfinished Tales or the Silmarillion. The Lord of the Rings world is literally so vast, there is absolutely no way they could fit everything into 3-4 hour long movies. That being said, the Lord of the Rings movies are by far the best movies ever made by man. In my opinion, there is literally no movie that even comes close. Not Marvel, not anything. If you're anything like me, you've seen Lord of the Rings literally hundreds of times. It is a movie that you can watch over and over and over again and still never get bored of it. If I got a nickel for every single time I rewatched Return of the King, I would have at least $15 by now. I absolutely love Return of the King. Peter Jackson did a fantastic job at bringing the world of Lord of the Rings to life. And this entire video is gonna be me sucking the dick of that entire franchise, so here we go. The cast of those movies are literally the best of all time. Who they got to play Aragorn, who they got to play Samwise, who they got to play Gandalf, who they got to play Boromir. Everything about the casting is just about perfect. The only thing I do not like is who they got to play Frodo, or at least how they directed him. In the books, Frodo was kind of a badass. Like on Weathertop, he was the one who charged at the Nazgul, not Sam. And like, the Nazgul were like mildly scared of him for like a little while. I don't think scared is the right word. I think more impressed would be better, especially when he was carrying the thing that they were looking for. Like, I feel like that would be a better way of describing how it was. Don't get me wrong, Elijah Wood is an amazing Frodo and he did a fantastic job. I just wish that they had kind of captured a bit more of that Frodo badass from the book. But everything else about the casting is absolutely perfect. My two favorite characters are definitely King Theoden and Aragorn. Never in all my days will I find characters that I love more than those two. They were both perfectly cast to the point where whenever I think of those two characters, I immediately think of either one of them. No matter what medium I am hearing the story of Lord of the Rings, I always imagine those two actors as the characters that they play. It is hard to differentiate them in my mind whenever I see them in any other medium. But the cast isn't the only thing that made these movies absolutely amazing. Definitely the sets are what sealed the deal for these movies. The set for Minas Tirith, how they made the Shire, Isengard, all of it combined made this movie feel so alive and lived in. And you really grow a deeper appreciation for it once you see that everything was like models and it was like tiny and people could like walk under all the bridges and like Isengard and things like that. The amount of love and attention they went into making this world feel lived in is absolutely staggering. And once you look into the little tiny details that they did to make this world feel lived in and real, whoever did the sets, they deserve to do more things because they honestly did an amazing job with this. I mean, just look at Isengard. This is a miniature. Somebody painted this. Somebody handmade this whole thing. When you think about it like that, it is absolutely amazing. And also the fact that it didn't completely rely on CGI for everything like movies do now. Like whenever you watch a Marvel movie, there's always always the understanding that just about everything you're looking at is fake. When you're looking at Lord of the Rings, you have an understanding that a majority of the stuff in that movie is real. Somebody actually made that, which makes it feel even more alive and lived in. And I'm definitely going to add this into the environment category. The makeup and the visual effects. All of the orbs, just about all of them, are prosthetics and like real, like makeup. That's why they feel so alive, and like they're actually things that you could punch in the face and kill. One thing I didn't like about The Hobbit is their over-reliance on CGI. Like, look at Azog, dude. What is this? He looks like Gumby. Why does he look like Gumby? I don't know whose idea it was to make Azog look like this, but it completely takes away the intimidation factor. One was based off.
Let us ease their pain. Release the prisoners.
Get them up!
Harder and harder and harder and harder to find a fictional world that genuinely feels real because they rely on CGI so much, nothing looks real and nothing feels real anymore. Because nothing looks real, it's really hard to be involved in the stakes of that particular universe. Like, for instance, I was watching, what is it, Pandora? Avatar. Yeah, there it is. Thank you, Google. I was watching Avatar, and I didn't care because nothing looked or felt real to me. Everything felt super duper CGI, so I didn't give much of a shit, right? I mean, look at this scene from Avatar, right? You don't really care, it looks CGI. Now look at this scene from Lord of the Rings. Yeah, it's CGI, but there's enough visual effects for you to feel like, holy shit, whatever is happening, this is a big deal, and I need them to succeed.
And rising in his stirrups, he cried in a loud voice, more clear than any there had ever heard a mortal man achieve before. Arise, arise, riders of Frodo! Fell leads awake fire and slaughter. Spear shall be shaken, shield be splintered, the sword day, red day, ere the sun rises. Right now, right!
Like, what are they called? Schooling? Film students? Every single film student should be learning from Lord of the Rings, studying what makes this scene epic and timeless. Because if there's one thing I hate, is the over-reliance on CGI, is the fact that nothing feels real anymore. Lord of the Rings got real people in real makeup to fight with real swords. I mean, have you seen the behind-the-scenes footage of how they did the Battle of Mordor in the very, very first movie? Like, look, it's real people.
It doesn't get any better than that.
200-odd horses just charging down this plain. It was spectacular.
Literally, they would be halfway down and the ground was shaking.
That's why The Hobbit is nowhere near as successful as the original Lord of the Rings. It's because they have this Mickey Mouse, blue screen, jumbo mumble, whatever the fuck you want to call it, all over the fucking movie. That's the reason why Ian McKellen had like a mental breakdown, because he wasn't, like, in the first movies, at least he was around people. He wasn't completely alone in some CGI prison. Study these movies, people. Learn why they're so amazing. By far, if you ever want to understand why Lord of the Rings has stood the test of time, it's because everything feels real. The stakes honestly feel very heavy, and you feel like this is something you need to invest your time into. That water's really tight. Excuse me. Which leads into my next point, the directing. Oh my god. The direction in this movie, flawless. Everything in this movie, every single action that anyone takes feels like they're not just being told to do it. It feels like they have to do it and they're passionate about everything they're doing. I mean, look at this scene right here. This scene is a masterclass on just how to get someone to feel about something that doesn't really matter at all, right? Like, Lord of the Rings is completely fictional. But this scene, I know the first time you saw this movie, you were like, holy shit, something has got to be done and it's got to be done now. The direction, the way the characters act, everything is absolutely perfect. I could honestly praise the acting and like the character direction and everything about this movie forever because it's absolutely amazing. I mean, my favorite character to watch act is definitely Samwise. I feel like they really did a good job with him. He's pretty much the way he was in the book. A few things are different, but he's pretty much the same. And Aragorn. And of course, King Theoden, because I'm biased and I love those two characters and they're the best in Lord of the Rings. Say otherwise, I will physically fight you. Like, I'm not even joking about that. I seriously will. King Theoden, I feel like, is one of the best characters ever put on screen ever of all time. this man he's perfect. He's just absolutely flawless. I have no idea. Like, there's probably like that one person who doesn't like King Théoden, and to that one person I have to ask, why? Why don't you like this guy? Have you seen his scenes in this movie? Have you even began to understand how absolutely incredible he is? The speech on the Battle of Pelennor Fields cannot be topped by anyone. Many have tried and many have failed to get you to king. And
then all the host of Rohan burst into song. They sang as they slew, for the joy of battle was on them. And the sound of their singing was fair and terrible.
Anyone could not only not have watched these movies, but not liked them. It makes zero sense to me. And all of Lord of the Rings is made even better when you understand the lore. Like, Lord of the Rings has one of the most rich, complex lores of all time. Like, all the lore with Sauron, all the lore with Gandalf, all the lore with the Balrogs. The Balrogs, Sauron, and Gandalf are all part of the same race. And there was like an ancient race of men that was wiped out by Ulmo, the Valar of Water. Like, there's so much going on that you would never get it all if you only ever watched the movies, right? And I think that's what makes Lord of the Rings just this amazing, absolutely perfect piece of cinema and media, is the fact that whether you're a new fan or an old fan, you genuinely will never not have stuff to study about this franchise, because there are mysteries we still don't know about Lord of the Rings, like the ancient ones in the bottom of the world, like whatever this guy was, right? Some people believe Tom Bombadil was actually an ancient. Things like that make Lord of the Rings so much better and so interesting, because you always have stuff to study. And when you watch Lord of the Rings, especially after you've studied like the lore a little bit more, it's way more fun to be like, so that's a reference to this Valar, or that's a reference to Sauron's past, like millions of years ago, before like time even started. I recommend, if you really want to get into Lord of the Rings and you really want to just feel like you understand this world, study the lore and read about the Silmarillion, the Valar, the Old Ones, Iluvatar. Read about all of that. It honestly makes your Lord of the Rings experience so much better, and it makes these movies so much more grand because they're fighting not just for the future, but they're fighting for the honor of the past. Don't get me wrong, these movies are epic on their own, and I don't think anyone should ever change them or do a fucking reboot. Don't do this. Don't do this unless you're gonna do it right. But I think that these movies are absolutely fantastic. But I'm just saying, if you want to have a different kind of experience while watching these movies, I recommend you absolutely read the books, read the Silmarillion, and do all of that, because it adds so much to these already amazing stories. But in conclusion, Lord of the Rings, the movies, are absolutely flawless, and they are something that everybody should experience at least once in their life. If they don't change your life, that you will definitely be thinking about them for a very long time. These amazing characters, the amazing villains, the epic lore, everything about this universe is so amazing. In my opinion, it is better than Star Wars, and that is saying a lot, especially coming from me. I am an uber Star Wars fan. I feel like Star Wars is super great, but it does not even begin to come close to the pinnacle that Lord of the Rings has stood up upon all other franchises. So I'm gonna leave this video off by saying, if you haven't seen Lord of the Rings, or you haven't been thinking about seeing Lord of the Rings, I highly recommend that you change your mind and go check it out, because it is very much worth your time.